Activated.
Analyzing.
Update complete.
The escape of Ragnar Anchorage was one of the last confirmed battles between colonial forces and that of the Cylon invasion fleets. The battle itself is an odd study because one could argue whether the battle occurred during the Second Cylon War or was simply a skirmish that happened after a total Cylon victory. I tend to believe that the siege was simply a skirmish, as any colonial remnant that survived the initial attacks would not be able to effectively conduct a war against the Cylons. After realizing most of the colonial fleet had been destroyed in the first few hours of the war, Captain William Adama would take command of all surviving colonial units. He ordered all surviving colonial vessels to Ragnar Anchorage, a supply depot that was located within a gas giant. It was thought that the depot would be safe as it was located within a gas giant of which the radiation in the giant was harmful to Cylon technology. Unfortunately, either no colonial forces would receive the transmission or none were left to hear it. The only vessels to heed the call of Adama would be a civilian fleet of up to 60 ships. Due to the death of so many in the civilian government, Education Secretary Laura Roslin was made president of the colonies. She found herself at odds with Captain Adama over the next course of action for the colonial survivors.
You planning to stage a military coup?
What?
Do you plan to declare martial law? Take over the government?
Of course not.
Then you do acknowledge my position as president is duly constituted under the Articles of Colonization.
Miss Roslin, my primary objective at the present time is to repair the Galactica and continue to fight.
What we do know at this moment is that there are 50,000 civilian refugees out there who don't stand a chance without your ship to protect them.
We're aware of the tactical situation, and I'm sure that you'll all be safe here on Ragnar after we leave.
After you leave? Where are you going?
To find the enemy. We're at war, and that's my mission.
I honestly don't know why I have to keep telling you this, but the war is over.
It hasn't begun yet.
That's insane.
You would rather that we run?
Yes, absolutely. That is the only sane thing to do here, exactly that, run. We leave this solar system and we don't look back.
Can we go where?
I don't know.
It's an interesting dichotomy between the two sides, and one that feels very real. Captain Adama had been a soldier, served in one major war, and the next war, he never even really had a chance to defend his home. Now he could barely conceive how fast the Second War had been, and that they had lost. Interestingly, the debate to leave the civilians and continue the quote-unquote war would continue throughout the Battlestar. At one point, they talk about how leaving the civilians behind would probably be safe.
And what about the civilians?
They're probably safe for the time being.
You mean leave them here? The Cylons may not even know they're here in the first place. They're probably only after us. Now that's one hell of an assumption.
As you can see, it was a common belief that the Cylon fleet was after the colonial military units and not the civilians. However, we see in the next episode that the only reason the Cylons found Galactica was because of a civilian ship. This means that most likely the Cylons weren't even aware of the Battlestar, but hunting down civilians. It makes me wonder how many civilians were killed during the war due to similar tracking devices on ships allowing the Cylons to track escaping fleets. It would all be a pretty moot conversation though, as a recon Viper would identify at least 2 base stars, 10 fighter squadrons, and 2 recon drone detachments waiting outside the safety of Ragnar Anchorage. The Cylons were ready to destroy anything that would emerge from the gas giant. Captain Adama would finally decide that, for humanity to survive, they would have to run. And apparently have babies.
They better start having babies.
Is that an order?
Maybe before too long. Okay, we're gonna take the civilians with us. We're gonna leave this solar system. We're not gonna come back.
We're running.
This war is over.
Lots and lots of babies. Cause running while having babies is easy. Just ask Rick Grimes.
Where's Carl?
What?
Where is he? I gotta find Carl.
Just trying to...
Rick, he's right behind you.
The plan was simple. The fleet would use their faster-than-light systems to jump to the Promar sector. The Promar sector was considered way past the quote-unquote red line for a jump, and that had never been attempted nor calculated before. Hopefully, such a long jump would keep the Cylons from following them. Lieutenant Felix Gaeta would be commanded to plot the jump and do it on his own. After the coordinates had been plotted, the plan was set into action. Battlestar Galactica pulled 5 clicks out from the gas giant, bringing up its top side to face the Cylons. The Battlestar began to fire anti-missile and anti-fighter ordnance, providing a suppression screen for the escaping fleet. Vipers then launched from the Battlestar and engaged the Cylon raiders to ensure that they could not outflank the Galactica, nor the civilian fleet that was attempting to escape. The Vipers laid down a hail of bullets, the raiders slamming into this wall of death with many of the frontline raiders being destroyed. However, the Cylons proved to be an equal match for the Vipers, as many of the Colonial pilots would not have even seen combat previously. Even with the suppression fire, several missiles would break through and strike the Galactica. The base stars began targeting the landing bays of the Galactica itself, attempting to keep it from escaping via jump. The Galactica would take massive amounts of damage, but be able to hold its own. Though, it was noted that the Battlestar could not stand toe-to-toe with 2 base stars for very long. Once the civilians had escaped, the Vipers would be recalled and it would go smoothly except for some harrowing moments when 2 Vipers would have to make a combat landing. But ultimately, the Battlestar would successfully escape. Over 50,000 people would survive the encounter, including men, women, and children. This would start the genesis of running from the Cylons, and ultimately was a sign of hope for the Colonials that they could make it, that they could survive. And I'm sure it wouldn't result in the numbers of the Colonials being decimated, continually dropping, and everyone agreeing to say to hell with technology, let's all die of dysentery on an alien planet and mate with the local populations.